You've heard the names: the Great Pyramid, the Hanging Gardens, the Colossus of Rhodes. But what if everything you thought you knew was wrong? These weren't just architectural marvels. They were puzzles, clues, codes carved in stone by minds far more advanced than we've been told. What if these wonders were built not just to inspire, but to protect something? Something hidden, something powerful, something we were never meant to find. Because history doesn't just forget. Sometimes it's made to forget. For centuries, we've been taught the same stories, that the seven wonders of the world were the crowning achievements of ancient empires, built by brilliant architects, backed by kings and queens, and made with crude tools and sheer manpower. But what if those stories are only half true? What if the true origins of these legendary monuments lie buried beneath centuries of forgotten knowledge, political rewriting, and something even more mysterious, something that challenges the very foundation of what we think we know about history? Let's begin with the Great Pyramid of Giza, the last surviving wonder of the original seven. Mainstream history tells us it was built as a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu over 4,500 years ago. But here's the twist. There's no mummy ever found inside. No inscriptions in the pyramid itself to confirm its function as a tomb. In fact, the precision with which it's built rivals modern engineering. Each block weighs several tons, yet they're placed with laser-like accuracy. Some researchers believe it may have been a power generator, or a celestial observatory, or even a structure built long before the Egyptians inherited it. Could Khufu have merely claimed it, rather than built it? And then there's the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Or so we're told. Because here's the truth. Archaeologists haven't even been able to prove they existed. There are no physical remains, no verified location. Ancient texts describe lush gardens suspended in air, maintained by an advanced irrigation system, possibly centuries ahead of its time. Some now believe the gardens may have actually been in Nineveh, not Babylon. Others believe they were symbolic or part of a lost kingdom now erased from the historical record. If they did exist, who designed such a complex feat of agricultural and architectural innovation? And why can't we find them? The statue of Zeus at Olympia is another enigma. Created by the famed sculptor Phidias, it stood over 40 feet tall, covered in ivory and gold. But again, not a single piece of it remains today. The records of its destruction are vague. Was it lost in a fire or dismantled and looted? Or could have been hidden, its gold harvested by empires that followed? Some whisper that it was deliberately removed to suppress religious memory, a monument to a dying god, hidden to cleanse the slate for new ideologies. And if so, where did the gold go? The temple of Artemis at Ephesus, meanwhile, was destroyed and rebuilt multiple times. It was a marvel of size and grandeur, funded by one of the richest cities of the ancient world. But one man, Herostratus, set it ablaze just to gain immortality. And even though the temple was reconstructed, it was eventually destroyed again, this time by invading forces. Some believe the true temple wasn't just a religious center, but a hub of sacred feminine energy, aligned with celestial events and seasons. Theories suggest the temple's layout encoded knowledge about the stars, lunar cycles, and perhaps even human reproduction. So was it burned just for fame, or was there a deeper reason to erase this symbol of divine femininity? The mausoleum at Halicarnassus is said to be the origin of the word mausoleum, a grand tomb built by a grieving wife for her husband, Mausolus. But many researchers question whether it was only a tomb. The reliefs and sculptures recovered suggest ritualistic use, perhaps even a site of ancient initiation or arcane knowledge. And like others, it was destroyed by earthquakes and scavenged for its stone, almost as if it was systematically dismantled. What knowledge might have been buried with it? The Colossus of Rhodes, a 100-foot statue said to have stood at the entrance of the harbor, legs astride the water. But that image is largely myth. Ancient sources say the statue collapsed in an earthquake just 56 years after it was built. Its bronze pieces lay on the ground for over 800 years, until they were allegedly sold off to merchants. Or were they? There's no record of the statue ever being reconstructed. Some theorists believe the Colossus wasn't just an idol, but a symbol of an advanced society that mastered metallurgy and engineering in ways we've yet to rediscover. Did they choose to erase it themselves, fearing its power, or was it destroyed by jealous empires? And then we come to the Lighthouse of Alexandria. built on the island of Pharos. This towering marvel guided ships for centuries and is often considered the prototype for all future lighthouses. But its foundations are now underwater, and many believe it held more than just fire to light the way. Some describe a mirror system so advanced it could focus light for miles, or even be used to burn enemy ships. Legends speak of subterranean passages beneath it, possibly connecting to the Library of Alexandria, another site of mysterious destruction. Could the lighthouse have been part of a greater knowledge network, silenced when that knowledge became too powerful? Each of these wonders isn't just a story of what was built, but what was lost, hidden, or possibly rebranded. In every case, there are gaps in the narrative, myths that conflict with records, missing blueprints, technologies too advanced for their era, destruction that seems too convenient, and a constant pattern. The true origin remains unconfirmed, and the purpose remains debated. So the question isn't just who built the Seven Wonders, it's who erased their real story. Were these structures really just tombs, temples, and statues? Or were they keys, physical anchors of knowledge meant for a more advanced, possibly global ancient civilization? And if that's true, where did they go? This is the version of the Seven Wonders you were never shown. Not the tourist photos, not the simplified textbook chapters, but the version buried in shadows, encrypted in stone, and whispered through forgotten languages. And maybe, just maybe, the real story is still out there, waiting to be uncovered. When we think of ancient civilizations, we imagine men dragging stones, building with bare hands, and creating miracles out of primitive tools. But what if that image is not just outdated? It's completely wrong. What if the civilizations behind the Seven Wonders had access to a level of technological understanding that rivals, or even surpasses, what we have today? In this journey, we peel back the layers of stone and dust to uncover engineering marvels so advanced they defy explanation even in the 21st century. Let's begin again with the Great Pyramid of Giza, the only wonder still standing. Each of its 2.3 million stone blocks weighs between 2 to 80 tons. These were quarried, transported, and placed with such precision that even a razor blade can't fit between them. Modern-day engineers still struggle to explain how this could have been done without cranes or power machinery. Even more puzzling is the orientation. The pyramid is aligned almost perfectly to true north, a feat that would be difficult even with GPS. Some researchers believe the builders had advanced understanding of astronomy, geometry, and magnetic fields. Others go further, suggesting the pyramid may have been more than just a monument, perhaps a gigantic energy device, designed to resonate with the Earth's natural frequencies. Now look at the Lighthouse of Alexandria, reportedly over 330 feet tall, equivalent to a modern skyscraper, built in the 3rd century BCE. It was the tallest man-made structure in the world for centuries. Ancient accounts speak of mirrored panels that could reflect sunlight miles out to sea. Some even claim the lighthouse used burning lenses to set approaching enemy ships on fire. How did they achieve that without modern optics? Could the ancients have had knowledge of solar concentration, refraction, or heat ray technology? And if so, where did that knowledge go? Moving to the Colossus of Rhodes, said to be built from bronze and standing nearly as tall as the Statue of Liberty. Bronze casting at that scale, with that much balance and support, is something that even today requires advanced metallurgy and structural engineering. How was it done over 2,000 years ago, with no cranes, no scaffolding systems like ours, and no weld machines? Some theories suggest the statue wasn't cast in pieces and assembled, but created using an ancient form of 3D layering, where molten bronze was poured in a rotating mold, a concept we only see now in modern manufacturing. Could they have possessed a method of large-scale metallurgy that was lost to time? The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus was more than just a religious site. It was a massive complex of art, mathematics, and engineering. It had 127 massive columns, each over 60 feet tall. But here's the catch. The temple was built on a marshy foundation, something that modern architects avoid due to instability. Yet the builders of Artemis intentionally selected the swampy terrain and used layers of charcoal, wool, and compacted earth to absorb seismic shocks. That's not just innovation. That's anti-earthquake engineering. How did they know how to do that? Were they experimenting, or were they working off knowledge inherited from earlier, advanced cultures? The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, if they existed as described, would require an irrigation system capable of lifting water to massive heights, a form of hydraulic engineering that supposedly didn't exist at the time. Ancient texts describe screws and pulleys, an early concept of what we now call the Archimedes screw, but there's no hard proof. And still, plants flourished on multiple terraces in the scorching Mesopotamian sun. If true, this wasn't just a garden. It was a demonstration of climate control, vertical farming, and architectural beauty fused with nature. We struggle to replicate this even today in harsh environments. The statue of Zeus at Olympia wasn't just massive. It was built using chrysolephanton technique, a mix of ivory and gold, laid over a wooden frame. Managing this delicate balance of organic material and precious metal in a humid climate required an understanding of temperature control, humidity resistance, and material preservation. The statue remained intact for centuries, glowing under torchlight before it mysteriously disappeared. Some believe it was dismantled and stolen. Others believe it was hidden away when the rise of Christianity threatened all pagan symbolism. But what's even more curious is that the statue's creator, Phidias, used a secret resin mixture that made the gold and ivory more durable, a formula that modern scientists have yet to replicate fully. Let's not forget the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, which stood 148 feet high, adorned with elaborate reliefs and topped with a massive pyramid-shaped roof. The structure combined Egyptian, Greek, and Lycian architecture, a fusion of cultures rarely seen. The joints in the stones were so tight and the material so expertly cut that it withstood earthquakes for centuries. Was this an example of high-level seismic architecture? Or was it knowledge passed down from civilizations whose own cities had already crumbled under time and tectonics? What becomes clear is this: the builders of these wonders weren't guessing. They weren't lucky. They were deliberate, mathematically precise, and technologically superior for their era. In some cases, their capabilities rival our own, even exceed them. We've used satellites and drones to scan the Great Pyramid and found hidden chambers we still can't access. We've tried to replicate the hanging gardens in modern cities, but failed to maintain their self-sustaining design. We've attempted to recreate statues like the Colossus, but struggle with the logistics, even with modern tools. So the question isn't, how did they do it with no machines? The real question is, did they actually have machines, ones we no longer remember? Did they tap into an understanding of magnetism, geometry, resonance, and celestial alignment that we've only begun to rediscover? Did they inherit this knowledge from an even older, pre-recorded civilization lost to floods, wars, or cosmic events? The ancients often claimed they were building with divine guidance, knowledge passed down by gods, star beings, or sky watchers. Maybe those were just metaphors. Or maybe they weren't. Because when you strip away the romantic tales and the dusty textbooks, you're left with stone-shaped, stacked, and engineered in ways that simply should not be possible for the people and the time frames we've been told. And that changes everything. Across every ancient structure that makes the list of the seven wonders, there is something deeper, something quietly waiting to be discovered. Not everything about these architectural giants is what it seems. Beyond their grandeur, beauty, and legendary construction lies something stranger, a language of symbols, numbers, patterns, and alignments. Hidden in the very stones are messages, codes, and knowledge systems that most of the world has overlooked or ignored. Take the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's not just an enormous triangle rising from the desert. Its entire geometry is packed with mathematical knowledge that modern scholars only began to grasp centuries later. Its height, multiplied by 43,200, give the approximate polar radius of the Earth. Its base, when multiplied by the same number, gives the equatorial circumference. The pyramid is positioned on the planet's landmass center with unbelievable accuracy. How could builders over 4,000 years ago have known the Earth's dimensions and mapped its geography with such precision, unless this knowledge predated even their civilization? And the numbers don't end there. The pyramid's layout reflects pi symbol, the golden ratio, phi, and precise solar calculations. Some researchers believe it wasn't just a tomb or a monument, but a repository of cosmic knowledge, a symbolic structure encoding frequencies, energies, and celestial alignments into stone. Could this monument have been a kind of giant equation, locked in architecture, passed down from a civilization that saw the universe very differently than we do? It's not just Egypt. Across the ruins of the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, symbols of the goddess are found carved into the pillars, a complex weave of moon cycles, feminine energy, and sacred geometry. The temple itself was oriented to lunar events. Artemis was not merely a goddess of the hunt. She was a celestial figure, and her temple was a kind of calendar in stone. Its design reveals an understanding of cosmic timing, the relation between the earth, moon, and stars. Ancient priests who served at this temple were not only religious figures. They were mathematicians, astronomers, and keepers of encoded wisdom. At the mausoleum of Halicarnassus, one of the most overlooked wonders, a similar mystery unfolds. The structure is filled with relief sculptures, gods battling giants, scenes of afterlife passage, and heavenly realms. But these weren't just mythic decorations. The scenes appear to be symbolic instructions, echoing initiation rites of ancient mystery schools. What if this mausoleum wasn't only a tomb, but a coded message about death, rebirth, and spiritual transformation? What if it taught, through visual language, the journey of the soul, something more esoteric than any king's memory? Now shift to the Lighthouse of Alexandria. Its very name, Pharos, became synonymous with guiding light, not just for ships, but for knowledge. Nearby stood the Great Library, and some believe the two were connected underground. Scholars now suggest that beneath the foundation were tunnels used by the priesthood, and possibly secret repositories of scrolls and ancient maps. Some even speculate the lighthouse's alignment served dual purposes: navigation by sea and observation of celestial bodies. Its reflective mirrors may have been tuned not only to sunlight, but to stars. The tower, possibly, was both lighthouse and observatory, a tool to track constellations and perhaps interpret omens from the heavens. The Colossus of Rhodes, towering over the harbor, wasn't just a statue. It was a symbolic guardian. Sculpted in honor of the sun god Helios, it carried in its dimensions a sacred numerology that referenced solar cycles. Some believe the statue's posture and proportions were meant to align with the sun at specific times of year. The bronze surface itself may have acted as a reflective marker. Could the Colossus have been a sundial on a massive scale, predicting seasonal shifts, tides, and celestial movements? Let's talk about the Hanging Gardens. If they existed and their descriptions hold any truth, they were not merely beautiful. Their terraces followed the Fibonacci sequence, the mathematical spiral found in nature, from shells to galaxies. The very layout of the gardens, in some reconstructions, mimics the form of DNA strands. Ancient Mesopotamians were experts in astrology and mathematics, and some now theorize that the gardens were more than greenery. They were living diagrams, representing balance, fertility, and cosmic order, an ancient harmony between nature and numbers. Even the statue of Zeus, one sitting in the great temple at Olympia, was filled with layers of coded meaning. Gold and ivory adorned a frame that depicted not just the god's majesty, but symbolic representations of power, divinity, and moral order. Zeus wasn't alone. The base of the statue was carved with images of victory, justice, and cosmic battles. Some researchers suggest the statue's throne was etched with zodiac signs, placing Zeus as a ruler not just of men, but of time and the heavens. Like the great oracles of Delphi, the statue may have functioned as a visual prophecy, a message for ages to come. Across all seven wonders, one truth emerges. These weren't just feats of architecture. They were messages encrypted in matter. Codes hidden not in language, but in stone, in alignment, in number, in proportion. They carried knowledge about the stars, the earth, life, death, and human destiny. Ancient civilizations may not have left behind digital hard drives, but they left something even more durable. Stone monuments designed to speak through symbols to those who knew how to listen. And perhaps that's why many of these wonders were destroyed, not just by time or natural disaster, but by conquest, by fire, by those who feared what the symbols might reveal. To destroy a monument is to erase a language, to silence a code that might wake up future generations. But the codes still whisper, through ruins, through alignments, through echoes that modern science is just beginning to hear again. Maybe the seven wonders were never meant to be just admired. Maybe they were meant to be understood. Time has not been kind to all the seven wonders of the world. In fact, most of them no longer exist, not in their full glory, and in some cases, not at all. What remains is a puzzle scattered across time. Fragmented stones, faded texts, rumors in the margins of ancient books. But when you start piecing these fragments together, you find something strange. The way many of these wonders were lost is far from random. Fires, earthquakes, invasions, yes, the usual explanations are there. But when you look closer, patterns emerge. Patterns that suggest these wonders were not simply destroyed by accident, but possibly targeted, silenced, rewritten. The Great Pyramid of Giza is the lone survivor, still standing defiantly in the desert. But even it has not escaped alteration. The smooth white casing stones that once made it shine like a mirror under the sun, stripped. Its golden capstone, gone. Invasions, looting, and repurposing of the material for other buildings erased the outer message the pyramid once projected to the world. What's left is the skeleton of something far more majestic, and possibly more powerful, than most of us realize. If that much effort went into stripping its skin, what was hidden in it? Or more importantly, what needed to be erased? The Lighthouse of Alexandria, a beacon for the ancient world, was said to have stood for nearly 1,500 years. That's longer than most empires. Yet today, it's almost entirely lost beneath the waves, destroyed by earthquakes, or so we're told. But consider this. The lighthouse stood right next to the Great Library of Alexandria, the most famous collection of human knowledge ever assembled, and both were systematically dismantled across generations. The library burned multiple times. The lighthouse collapsed in stages. But too many scholars now believe this was no coincidence. It was an erasure, a purge. One structure guided ships, the other guided minds. And both became threats to those who wanted to reshape history. Now imagine the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the most poetic and mythical wonders, and yet it's the only one for which we have no confirmed archaeological evidence, not a single verified trace. Was it fiction, an exaggeration, or could it have been deliberately mislocated, misnamed, or hidden under modern-day Iraq? Beyond our political reach? Ancient writers like Strabo and Philo described it in vivid detail. Plants growing on terraces high above the ground, watered by an invisible system. They weren't imagining it. So where did it go? Some believe the gardens weren't even in Babylon, but in Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire, was a mistranslation or a historical cover-up. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus was destroyed not once, but multiple times. First by a man seeking eternal fame, Herostratus, and then again by invaders who saw no value in preserving pagan monuments. But was that really the full story? This temple was said to be one of the most beautiful in the world, a center of feminine worship, power, and ancient rites. Some historians believe its destruction was as much ideological as it was military. With the rise of patriarchal religions, Artemis and her sacred symbolism became a threat, something to be buried, not remembered. Today, only a few scattered columns remain, standing like ghosts in a swampy field. The statue of Zeus at Olympia vanished from history with remarkable silence. No great explosion, no detailed account. Some say it was moved to Constantinople, where it was destroyed in a fire. But no fragments, no gold, no ivory have ever been found. The base of the statue remained, but the god himself disappeared. It's as if Zeus was intentionally removed, as if someone decided that such an image of power, a god sitting in judgment, draped in celestial symbolism, was too dangerous to remain visible. His throne, reportedly inscribed with divine symbols, might have held more than just art. It might have preserved esoteric teachings, now lost. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus, like many of the other wonders, fell victim to earthquakes. Or at least, that's the story we're told. But consider this. The structure was left in partial ruin for centuries, and then, during the Crusades, its stone was used to build a fortress by the Knights of St. John. This wasn't just recycling old material. It was a cultural overwrite. One civilization literally dismantled the sacred resting place of another and used it to build their own military outpost. The original meaning of the structure, the personal grief that inspired it, the symbolism carved into its walls, all erased, buried, and rewritten in stone. The Colossus of Rhodes fell in an earthquake, yes, but what followed is even more interesting. Its remains lay on the ground for 800 years, drawing visitors from around the world. Then, it was allegedly sold off as scrap metal by Arab invaders. But how do you move 100 tons of bronze with 7th century technology? Where did it go? Who melted it down? and for what purpose. Some researchers suggest the Colossus may have been seen not just as a political statue, but as a beacon of knowledge and power, possibly even a form of astronomical marker. If so, its destruction might have been deliberate, an attempt to sever roads from its place in the ancient network of celestial observation. All across history, we see these monuments, once colossal, now scattered, as victims of time. But maybe they were victims of intentional forgetting. Maybe what was destroyed wasn't just architecture, but memory. And in destroying memory, control was asserted. It's easy to say these wonders fell due to natural disasters, wars, or decay. But when destruction becomes a pattern, when so many irreplaceable structures vanish without clear records, without consistent evidence, you have to ask, were they erased to make space for a different version of history? A version where certain gods, certain sciences, and certain truths had no place? And yet, despite the destruction, something remains. A pillar here, a foundation there. Symbols carved into rocks that refuse to fade. These ruins are not just remnants. They are survivors. They speak in broken language, in fractured geometry, but they speak. And they carry a quiet defiance. Because even if the full wonder is gone, the questions they left behind are still alive. And maybe that's more powerful than stone. When people visit the seven wonders of the world today, or what remains of them, they often arrive with wide eyes and ready cameras. The legends, the postcards, the history books, they've already painted the picture. But what visitors find isn't always what they expect. These monuments, once forged with divine ambition and impossible craftsmanship, now stand at the edge of tourism, mythology, and commercialization. What the world sees today is filtered, cleaned, reconstructed, narrated, but not always real. The line between history and illusion has blurred, and in the process, the wonders have become both preserved and lost all over again. Take the Great Pyramid of Giza. Tourists arrive expecting mystery and grandeur, and they get both. But also souvenir stands, crowds, camel rides, and guided tours that often simplify what is one of the most enigmatic structures in the world. Guides repeat the standard narrative. That it was a tomb built by Pharaoh Khufu, using tens of thousands of laborers over the course of decades. But deeper truths are left out. The fact that no royal remains were ever found inside. The astronomical alignments. The debated age. Some geologists believe erosion patterns suggest the pyramid is much older than 4,500 years. What we see today is a shell of the original. The outer casing stones are gone. The golden cap is missing, and modern lighting and ventilation systems have changed its inner atmosphere. In our eagerness to preserve and present, we've polished the pyramid into something it never claimed to be. The Temple of Artemis? What remains is barely a whisper. Tourists travel to Ephesus and find a single reconstructed column standing in a marshy field, a stork nest on top. Visitors often leave puzzled, not understanding how this lonely fragment could have once been one of the grandest temples in the world. What they don't see are the missing pieces, the dismantled stones used in later churches and fortresses, the layers of spiritual symbolism encoded into the architecture. The temple that once drew pilgrims from across the ancient world is now an afterthought, a checkbox on a tour list, lost not just to time, but to our modern habit of reducing everything to snapshots and sound bites. At Machu Picchu, often mistaken by many as one of the seven wonders, it is one of the new seven wonders, a separate list. A similar phenomenon plays out. Visitors marvel at its stunning mountaintop setting, its stone terraces, its mysterious precision, but many don't realize how much of it has been cleaned, reassembled, and curated for the camera. The quiet energy, the spiritual alignment, the cosmic position of its windows and temples, those deeper truths are drowned beneath drone footage and Instagram reels. In a world that demands instant understanding, the silent language of stone gets lost. The Colossus of Rhodes no longer exists, yet thousands visit the harbor where it supposedly once stood. Legs straddling the entrance, arms raised to the heavens. That image, iconic as it is, was never historically accurate. Ancient texts never described it standing in such a position. It most likely stood beside the harbor, not across it. But the myth has become more powerful than the truth. The legend has replaced the record. And in many ways, we've become more fascinated with the fantasy than the reality. Even today, debates rage about rebuilding the Colossus, not as a faithful replica, but as a modern tourist attraction. But if we rebuild something based on a myth, are we honoring it or rewriting it? The statue of Zeus and the Hanging Gardens are different. They're ghosts, and ghosts can be anything, because they no longer exist in the physical world. They exist entirely in our imagination. And imagination is easily shaped. Paintings, animation, CGI, they give form to what was once described only in words. We see Zeus glowing in gold, sitting on an ivory throne. We imagine waterfalls flowing down green terraces in Babylon. But these are guesses, beautiful, artistic, often commercial guesses. In losing the real thing, we've gained the freedom to imagine anything. And sometimes that's more dangerous than ignorance, because it convinces us we know what we never did. The Lighthouse of Alexandria, pieces of it lie underwater, scattered across the harbor floor. Modern divers and archaeologists have mapped its foundations, recovered statues, even proposed building a replica. Yet most visitors to Alexandria will never see these remnants. They will instead hear stories, many simplified, some exaggerated, about a tower that shined light for miles, guided ships, and symbolized knowledge. But few will be told that the lighthouse may have also served as an astronomical tool, or that its fall marked not just the loss of structure, but the symbolic death of an age of enlightenment. In today's world, where tourism fuels economies and social media shapes perceptions, the Seven Wonders have become more performance than history. Their stories are curated to fit into travel brochures and guided tours. Their mysteries are often left untouched, too complex, too controversial, too time-consuming to explain. We are handed the myth, not the truth. We see the replica, not the ruin. We capture the silhouette, not the soul. And yet, something still breaks through. A traveler standing in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid may feel a strange pressure, a resonance in the walls. A tourist walking to the ruins of Halicarnassus may pause, inexplicably drawn to a stone that no one talks about, a whisper from the past, subtle and fleeting. The monuments may be broken, polished, or missing, but something remains. A presence, a pulse. Perhaps it's not the monuments themselves we've misunderstood, but their purpose. They weren't just built to be seen. They were built to be felt, to teach, to transmit, and perhaps they were never meant to be preserved in museums or reconstructed with concrete and LED lighting. Maybe their true magic only works when they are raw, untouched, crumbling, honest. Because when something is too perfect, it becomes a product. But when it's cracked, ancient, mysterious, it becomes a question. And maybe that's what the Seven Wonders were always meant to be. Not answers carved in stone, but questions that still refuse to die. They weren't just wonders of the world. They were messages, carved in stone, scattered across time, and almost erased forever. But they're not gone. Not really. They're waiting. In broken pillars and buried foundations, in the silence between the stories we were told. Maybe the greatest wonder isn't what they built, but why it was hidden from us. F this change the way you see history. Don't let the story end here. Backhand Index Point writes subscribe to History Vault for more untold truths, ancient mysteries, and forbidden knowledge. Hit the bell icon, so you never miss what others are afraid to reveal. And in the comments, tell us which wonder you think is hiding the biggest secret, because the past isn't dead. It's just waiting to be unlocked.